Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So I talked about how last Friday I had a very stressful event because my student, I'm a professor at a community college, my student accidentally touched on something that gave me a lot of stress. He didn't mean it, obviously. But unfortunately, the fact that I live on a different wavelength often causes me a lot of trouble. Most people don't go out and do art projects over the weekend. Practically nobody is programming, or at least on their spare time, programming AI for computer games. And a lot of times it creates a little bit of a rift or misunderstanding, not necessarily a conflict, but because people cannot relate to it, they do not think it is very important. Let's put it that way. Oftentimes, I really despise how the workplace has become a very social over the last few years, because that's where I run into the most problem. When it's pure work, like when we were working remotely and nobody was socializing, I tend not to run into so many problems actually. Unfortunately, nowadays a lot of Gen Zers, they want the company to provide them lunch. That's going to be a huge nightmare for me because I eat so differently than everybody else. It's going to highlight so many differences, and not that people are against how I eat. It colors the atmosphere of what's going on in the office. Let me give you an eating example for me. So you guys have been watching me for a number of years. You know that I have grappled with binge eating disorders. Now, most people think that it's good to have a variety of food. I agree, with a catch, not within the same meal. Let me give you an example why. I find if I stick to one or two foods in a meal, I'm done with it and I'm good. I find it's very easy to fill up on food A, be stuffed on food A, and still have room for food B. So if I have 10 different foods, I'm not eating a tenth of every food. I'm eating 10 times more food. And so I agree with variety, but spread out across days, right? So Monday, eat this, Tuesday, eat that. Not Monday, eat a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But that's me. For somebody else, it might work differently, right? My point is that not everybody will work the same things in the same way, right? I'm sure some of my viewers would probably agree with my eating patterns. You know, once upon a time, I think around the time that Bill Clinton was president, we used to live and let live. Some people were vegan, vegetarian. It never seemed to make waves. I don't know why these days it's such a big deal that somebody relaxes in a different way than you do, or somebody likes a different sport than you do, or I dislike Mondays. Hope yours was better. I don't dislike Mondays necessarily. I have the day off anyhow because it's Juneteenth. I don't despise Mondays necessarily. Where I have a problem with it is that sometimes these prejudice kind of things, right? People judge how I spent the weekend, or part of the reason I'm even programming part of the reason I'm programming the AI for Ticket to Ride Poland is because years ago, or one of the reasons, there's several reasons I'm programming it, but years ago, people had a big problem with me traveling to Poland. Uh, and my mom had a big problem with me dating a distant cousin of Mary Curry. And she was a little bit racist. This was 20 years ago. And my mom didn't want to ruin the family lineage. We should keep it Asian. She literally said that to me back then. And fast forward 20 years later, she doesn't want me to be single, even if I have to date a distant cousin of Mary Curry. I was just talking to, well, you guys have saw me struggle with this, but I had asked a girl out. She was a distant cousin of Selena, the singer, and my mom's okay with that now. When 20 years ago she had a big problem, she just doesn't. My mom just doesn't want me to be single. and that's that she wants grandchildren. But many years ago, when Bill Clinton was president, right? People were vegan. People had interracial relationships, and I mean, you just did whatever you like to do, right? Nobody got in each other's noses. I don't know why um, we do that these days. I really don't. Now, where this becomes a problem is that it colors perceptions, and nothing's black and white, right? Especially any sort of novel research like I'm doing. Nothing is black and white. And for example, uh, how your teaching method, that's not black and white, right? Oftentimes, what pushes things over the edge to become black or white is these little perceptions, right? Oh, you went on a trip somewhere I kind of don't agree with. You eat differently than I do. You dated somebody that I disapprove with. Um, uh, you get the idea, right? Something that's gray, and all of a sudden, because of differences in eating habits, of religion, of sexual orientation, all of a sudden it pushes things over the edge to either direction, right? That's the flavor I get at a lot of workplaces that I've been at, right? And unfortunately, these things are never black and white, right? If you work something that had a black or white answer, like if you were any sort of blue collar worker, like at a factory, where you either produced a widget or you didn't, this might not be that big of a problem, right? I don't know if that made sense, but you get the idea, right? Anything that sits on the edge has a tendency to have these little deciding factors, right? Um, anyways, next week I'll hope to ask out a girl. She's another distant cousin of Mary Curry. Um, anyway, it sucks. I sometimes, when I see COVID cases going up, I go, oh, that's great. We might work remotely again, where we don't have this social atmosphere, right? The cafeteria at the workplace is the worst place. It's like my nightmare, because people get to see my eating habits. They get to hear about my dating habits. They get to hear about all sorts of gossip. Uh, if there was an image of hell here on earth, it would be the cafeteria of where I work. That's the definition. That's the definition of hell on earth for me. If there was a heaven on earth, it would be a place where we went to work and all of our social lives just completely disappeared when we went there, right? So, for example, the closest thing I've ever experienced to that is when we were working remotely, right? It was almost pure work, right? As soon as you turned off the computer, you went off to enjoy your social lives elsewhere, right? If at all, because we were in quarantine, right? But anyway, maybe I need to find a different career path. Part of the reason I love my art is that it is what it is, right? I either make a masterpiece or I don't, right? It doesn't get colored by these perceptual matters, right? The customer who's buying the art off me, they might see me for 15 minutes, and they probably will never see me eat a morsel of food, right? They probably will never hear about where I go on vacation, right? In fact, usually I tell my customers I'm way too busy with art to go anywhere, right? Uh, Maybe I just need to find a different career path where perception doesn't measure our performance, right? That would be ideal, right? Anyways, this Juneteenth, make it a goal to live and let live. Don't let these things color how you view the world, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Let's do that again. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.